History. I am the 21st century history. I am your Rosa Parks, your Harriet Tubmans. I am that person. Somebody has to say, never, never, ever give up.
All right, we've got some breaking news from South Suburban Dalton, where a judge has sided with opponents of Mayor Tiffany Henyard in an ongoing power struggle. Henyard has tried to work around trustees by appointing her own village manager, attorney, and police chief. The trustees sued. Now a judge has entered an order that clearly states Henyard's picks for those positions are out.
So a state court judge has just slapped down.
A state court judge has just ruled against Mayor Tiffany Henyard, telling her she can't make any more appointments. Welcome to Dalton, Illinois, where Mayor Tiffany Henyard, often called the worst mayor in America, resides. Despite earning approximately $300,000 a year, she is struggling to pay her rent and is facing eviction from her apartment in Dalton.
Tiffany Henyard and her boyfriend have been served an eviction notice. The property owner saying the two are months behind on their rent.
Mayor Henyard and her boyfriend, Kamal Woods, are together pulling down well over $300,000 from taxpayers, according to public payroll records. But they haven't paid their rent since August. And now their landlord says,
Today, I want to discuss the recent events happening in Dalton. First, Tiffany Henyard is not just the mayor of Dalton. She also serves as the supervisor at Thornton Township. She was appointed to this position after the previous supervisor passed away, and she now earns a salary of $225,000. As her term is coming to an end, Tiffany Henyard needs to run for re-election. For her re-election campaign, she wishes to be placed on the Democratic ticket.
Tonight, if you don't get the Democratic Party's nomination.
What do you mean? I will be victorious tonight. You will see. My people are here. They're not going to go nowhere.
The township recently held a caucus to decide the candidates for the Democratic ticket, and Tiffany Henyard did not secure a win.
Some political maneuvering.
A Democratic caucus last night resulted in someone else being named the party's nominee. Eric is in the newsroom with more. Eric?
Well, good morning. The Democratic Party decided to hold a caucus instead of a primary for Thornton Township supervisor, the first time in decades. And Henyard and her slate of candidates lost that nomination. She's already saying the process was.
Tiffany Henyard lost the township caucus to Napoleon Harris, a former NFL player and the current state senator. As a state senator, Harris earns $90,000 annually, but stepping into the role of Thornton Township supervisor could potentially boost his earnings to $200,000 per year, essentially doubling his salary. Following her loss in the caucus to Harris, Henyard decided to file a lawsuit.
Tiffany Henyard, who is also Thornton Township supervisor, is suing both Dalton trustees and the township's Democratic caucus after losing the nomination for her leadership role.
She claims the caucus process was unfair and accuses State Senator Napoleon Harris, the caucus leader, of voter suppression. And Thornton Township Henyard claims Harris and caucus organizers locked out supporters during the December 3rd nomination meeting, forcing many to stand outside in freezing weather. She alleges the process was rigged and says the decision to hold a caucus instead of a primary denied vote.
After filing the lawsuit, Tiffany Henyard was compelled to drop it almost immediately and remove one of the plaintiffs involved shortly after she refiled the lawsuit.
This battle to stay on the ballot takes a twist. She's now filed, dropped, and refiled a lawsuit, all in the span of a few days. Henyard is suing Thornton Township Democratic Committeeman Napoleon Harris. She accuses him of illegally preventing her and her supporters from taking part in a...
While Tiffany Henyard was fighting to protect her $200,000 a year job, she also encountered issues in her role as mayor of the village of Dalton. As mayor, she has the authority to appoint individuals to certain key positions, but these appointments require approval from the Board of Trustees. Similarly, if she decides to fire someone from an approved position, the Board of Trustees must also sign off on the removal. In Dalton, 3 critical positions needed board approval: the chief of police, the village attorney, and the village administrator, who essentially functions as the chief operating officer of the village. Initially, Henyard appointed individuals to each of these positions without following the proper legal process. She appointed Michael A. Smith as village administrator, Angela as village attorney, and Ronnie Burr Sr. as chief of police. Starting with the chief of police, the previous police chief had been indicted on federal charges for 9 crimes, making him ineligible to continue serving as an officer. In truth, if we're being totally honest,
The acting police chief of Dalton now facing federal charges. A grand jury indicted him on bankruptcy fraud charges today.
He's a close ally of Dalton's embattled Mayor Tiffany Henyard and the second of her top aides to face
to replace the indicted police chief. Tiffany Henyard appointed Ronnie Burr Sr. as the new chief of police. Interestingly, Burr Sr. had run against Henyard in the 2021 mayoral race and previously served as the police chief in Dixmoor. However, Henyard's decision quickly faced scrutiny when the state intervened. They sent her a letter stating that Burr Sr. did not meet the qualifications to serve as chief of police, rendering his appointment invalid.
The state agency that regulates local law enforcement in Illinois says Mayor Tiffany Henyard's handpicked police chief is not right now legally qualified to run the department. In the letter, the deputy director of the Training and Standards Board tells Henyard that Burge is considered inactive because Dalton has not submitted the proper paperwork on his behalf, and because Burge has not completed a requalification shoot since 2021 when he was with the Dixmoor Police Department. For these reasons, he is currently not authorized to exercise law enforcement authority or to carry a firearm publicly, the letter says. We strongly encourage you to remove him from public service until an appointment is submitted and the board determines if he is eligible for reactivation.
The letter from the deputy director of the Training and Standards Board to Tiffany Henyard outlined several critical issues with her appointee for chief of police, Ronnie Burr Sr. The letter clarified that Burr Sr. was deemed inactive because the village of Dalton had not submitted the necessary paperwork on his behalf. Additionally, Burr Sr. had not completed a requalification shoot since 2021 when he was with the Dixmoor Police Department. As a result, he was neither authorized to exercise law enforcement authority nor carry a firearm publicly. The letter strongly urged Henyard to remove him from public service until an appointment was properly submitted and the board could determine his eligibility for reactivation and a training waiver. Next, Henyard appointed Michael A. Smith as the village administrator, the chief operating officer of the village, to a position that came with a $100,000 annual salary. Smith, a 34-year-old with a long history in South suburban politics, brought significant controversy due to his checkered past.
Village board meeting, Henyard announced a 30-day temporary appointments for police chief, village attorney, special counsel, and executive assistant.
So now that brings us to this lawsuit, which Tiffany Henyard lost in a very dramatic way.
Public records show Smith had been charged at least 8 times for various offenses, including domestic battery and official misconduct. In 2012, he resigned as a Dixmoor trustee after pleading guilty to theft for posing as a police officer to steal gasoline. In 2018, while working as an assistant dean at Thornton Fractional High School, he was fired for sexual harassment and inappropriate behavior, including contacting a 15-year-old female student on Snapchat with inappropriate comments and making advances toward her. Smith also demonstrated lascivious intent toward other students and displayed aggressive behavior toward a male student. It's very important to know that I don't serve anyone. More recently, Smith was dismissed from the Echo School District for falsifying information on his employment application. Finally, Henyard's third controversial appointment was Angela Lockett as village attorney. I know for a fact she wasn't there when I was in law school, so she probably gave excellent legal advice. Finally, Henyard's third controversial appointment. The Board of Trustees rejected all 3 appointments. Ronnie Burr Sr. as Chief of Police, Michael A. Smith as Village Administrator, and Angela Lockett as Village Attorney, on the grounds that the appointments were made illegally. Despite this, Henyard was permitted to make 30-day temporary appointments to these positions adding further tension to the situation.
Keith Freeman, I know you're watching. You no longer works for the Village of Dalton. Please turn in your keys, turn in all your stuff. HR reach out to you tomorrow as relates to.
This brings us to the dramatic conclusion of the lawsuit, which Tiffany Henyard lost in a definitive and public manner. The village trustees successfully obtained a permanent injunction order against Henyard and her appointees, Michael A. Smith, Angela Lockett, and Ronnie Burr Sr. The court explicitly restrained Tiffany Henyard from making any further appointments to village positions without the approval of the Board of Trustees. The court ruled that Michael Smith is barred from holding himself out as the village administrator. You will not have the opportunity to levy your own will upon inconsistency in your department here. And then one other thing, said Smith, Angela Lockett, and Ronnie Burr Sr. This means he cannot claim, act, or pretend to hold the position, nor can he interfere with or exercise any duties associated with the role unless lawfully appointed or authorized. Angela Lockett, though an attorney, was also barred by the court from holding herself out as the village attorney. She is not allowed to act in that capacity or represent herself. The same restriction was applied to Ronnie Burr Sr. He is not the chief of police, and the court barred him from performing or even claiming any duties of that role. Additionally, the case highlighted Henyard's attempt to fire the former village administrator, Kay Freeman, without obtaining the necessary approval from the Board of Trustees. Freeman, who had been indicted on federal charges and later cooperated with authorities against Henyard, further complicated the mayor's legal and political battles. The court's decisive rulings not only nullified Henyard's controversial appointments, but also set a clear precedent regarding the necessity of board oversight and proper legal procedures in municipal governance. So as you can see, the mayor tried to fire Kay Freeman, but since Freeman had been appointed and approved by the Board of Trustees, the mayor couldn't just fire him without their approval. Even though Henyard attempted to remove him, the court ruled that the firing was invalid. The court ordered that Kay Freeman must remain the village administrator until the proper procedure is followed, meaning the Board of Trustees must approve his firing. The court also stated that Tiffany Henyard, Michael Smith, Angela Lockett, and Ronnie Burr Sr. all agreed to follow the current village ordinances and codes unless those codes were amended by the Board of Trustees or ruled invalid by a court with jurisdiction. This permanent injunction is in full effect and has been agreed upon by all parties involved, resolving the matter entirely. Jack in the Wound book justice. What does this mean? Essentially, if Tiffany Henyard violates this injunction, she could be held in contempt of court and face potential criminal or civil penalties for disobeying the court order. The walls seem to be closing in on the super mayor. All her appointments have been overturned by court order, and she's not on the ballot for re-election. Things are certainly looking bleak for her. Let me know what you think about this Henyard situation, and since I love crazy stories, I'll leave you with this.